All right, we want to turn now to an in-depth look at a very important figure in Democratic frontrunner Barack Obama's life. His longtime pastor, the Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Reverend Wright has made a number of controversial statements over the years. Now that Obama is a national figure, the question is, could the Reverend become a liability? Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross is here with more on this. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Chris, Diane. Senator Obama has been a member of the same church in Chicago for 20 years, where his pastor has been Reverend Jeremiah Wright, the man who performed the Obama's marriage ceremony, and the man Obama credits for the title of his book, The Audacity of Hope.
Reverend Wright has built a large and loyal following at his church, the Trinity United Church of Christ, on Chicago's South Side. With a powerful voice and his strong words, Reverend Wright can be a mesmerizing presence.
The angels in heaven were singing, God never fails.
And he often uses the gospel to affirm his strong political views, as in this 2003 sermon, damning the United States for its treatment of blacks.
The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America? No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human.
It's not known if Senator Obama was in the church on this day, but he has sought to play down Reverend Wright's overall approach.
I don't think that my church is actually particularly controversial.
During the campaign, the senator has defended what he calls Reverend Wright's social gospel.
So he was one of the leaders in calling for divestment from South Africa and some other issues like that. And he thinks it's important for us to focus on what's happening in Africa. And I agree with him on that.
But an ABC News review of more than a dozen sermons, which are offered for sale by the church, found Reverend Wright going far beyond issues of Africa. He refers to the U.S. as under the influence of the Ku Klux Klan.
And they will not only attack you if you try to point out what's going on in white America, U.S. of KKKA.
He regularly mocks black Republicans as sellouts.
They live below the sea level. They live below the level of Clarence Colin and condemnesia.
In his first sermon after September 11th, 2001, Reverend Wright said the U.S. had brought on the attacks with its own terrorism.
We bombed Hiroshima, we bombed Nagasaki, and we nuked far more than the thousands in New York and the Pentagon, and we never batted an eye. We have supported state terrorism against the Palestinians and black South Africans, and now we are indignant because the stuff we have done overseas is now brought right back into our own front yards. America's chickens are coming home to roost.
Reverend Wright retired last month, but members of the church say he left a lasting impression on them and Senator Obama.
He spoke the truth, continues to speak the truth, and people can label that as radical, but I think it's insightful.
No, I wouldn't call it radical. I'd call it being black in America. It's not radical. How radical is that?
Reverend Wright declined to comment or appear on this program, as did Senator Obama. In his most recent appearance in Ohio, when he was asked about it, Senator Obama said that Reverend Wright was like an old uncle who sometimes says things I don't agree with. Chris.
And now he's in the spotlight. Brian, thank you very much for some reaction from the Obama campaign. A few moments ago, we were joined by Sean Casey. He's an advisor to the Obama campaign and a professor of Christian ethics at Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington. Professor Casey, thank you for joining us this morning. You heard Brian's piece. Given what Reverend Wright has said over the years, much of which would be considered over the line politically, should Senator Obama separate himself from the Reverend whom he calls his spiritual guide?
I think Senator Obama has been very clear that he disagrees with Reverend Wright on a number of the specific issues you've just shown in this story. I think it's unfair to hold any politician to the political views of their particular pastor, and I think it's unfair to hold any pastor to the political views of congregants. It's part of the great American tradition that many congregations are composed of folk who have a wide variety of political views. So I don't think that Senator Obama has really any more to say than what you showed in that piece.
But is there a responsibility as a candidate for president to associate yourself, certainly as a spiritual advisor, with ideas that are consistent with your campaign? Senator Obama saying his campaign's about moving away from divisive politics, from sniping and attacks. And then to say your spiritual advisor is a man who says America should be damned, that it is to blame for 9/11, that Farrakhan deserves an award for epitomizing greatness, does that go together?
I think he's repudiated that very clearly. If you had any evidence, and in fact that Senator Obama had embraced those views, we would have seen that in the piece. But the fact that you didn't have any video of Senator Obama embracing those views, in fact, he's repudiated those views, I think is very clear. I mean, it's interesting to me, you haven't vetted Hillary Clinton's pastor's sermons, you haven't vetted President Bush's pastor's sermons, you haven't vetted John McCain's pastor's sermons, so you're not holding them to that standard, which I think is very interesting.
And you believe that what the Reverend has said doesn't go beyond the pale of what he preaches in terms of religion. It doesn't deserve any more scrutiny than that. It doesn't have anything to do with politics. This is just the media picking on Senator Obama.
No, it's fair to ask those questions, but what you have to accept Senator Obama's answer is that he repudiates those specific political views on the 3 or 4 issues that you've outlined, and I think you have to take his word for that.
Certainly.
I mean, it seems to me what you're trying to do is what some of the media tried to do to John Kennedy in 1960, that because he was a Catholic, he must embrace certain political views the Catholic Church held, and he denied those, for about a 4-year period. And it really wasn't until the actual election itself that the American public understood that he was able to separate himself from some of the political views of his church. I think it's the same dynamic that's going on here.
When people hear what Reverend Wright has to say, they may be concerned that that is the spiritual advisor for Senator Obama. How do you respond to that?
The way to judge Senator Obama's spirituality and faith is to read what he has written, to listen to the speeches he has given, which again you showed no clips from. This man has spoken at greater length about his faith than any current candidate for the presidency of the United States. Follow what Senator Obama says on policy, follow what he says about his own spirituality. Don't impute positions to him from his minister. That's only fair.
All right. Professor Casey, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.